Yeah, so my presentation is indeed about sex differences in the association between modifiable risk factors and the incidence of stroke, not only stroke overall, but also of stroke subtypes. The reason for this work is that even though the main risk factors for stroke have been identified, what is unknown is whether the association between those the strength of the association between those risk factors and stroke outcomes is similar between women and men. So that was the rationale for the study. And we had been doing some work on this in the past, in that we went through the available literature in order to identify whether there were sex differences in the magnitude of the effects. But now we had the opportunity to use a very large database from the UK Biobank to in one database, in one large study, assess whether those sex differences are present or not. So that's what I'm really presenting on. Yeah, so the main findings of the work were that the main modifiable risk factors for stroke, and those are hypertension, smoking, obesity, atrial fibrillation, and socioeconomic status, were indeed associated with the risk of ischemic stroke in both women and men. And for hemorrhagic stroke, we found consistent associations with the risk of hemorrhagic stroke for hypertension, smoking, diabetes, and for atrial fibrillation. And atrial fibrillation in particular was very strongly associated with the risk of hemorrhagic stroke. We also found evidence for sex differences in the associations, in the sense that some risk factors show to have a strong association with the risk of stroke and stroke subtypes in women as compared with men. And the risk factors where we found a strong association for women were diabetes for ischemic stroke, atrial fibrillation for hemorrhagic stroke, and for overall stroke, we found a strong association for smoking, hypertension, and low socioeconomic status. It's important to highlight that I'm now talking about relative risk, so the risk of stroke in a person with diabetes compared to a person without diabetes. But these sex differences should also be put in the context of sex differences in the absolute rates of stroke. So how many people, given 100 people, how many of those people are likely to get a stroke event within the next year? And in men, those rates are higher as compared with women. So even though there are some risk factors that have a stronger relative contribution to the risk of stroke in women as compared with men, the absolute rate, so the number of people suffering from stroke at a given age and at a given risk profile is still higher in men. So it's important to keep that in mind as well.